Hello, this is Lily Morningstar, your instructor at College of Southern Nevada. If you're watching this video, you're in my class CAT 217, Security Plus. Chapter 1. After completing this chapter, you will be able to define information security, summarize information assurance, identify frameworks adopted by organizations, list and discuss common security domains, explain regulatory compliance. Let's first talk about defining information security. What is information security and how different is information security from network security, from IT security, or maybe cybersecurity in general? The image on the right will help you to understand how all the security layers or bubbles in this particular image would be included into each other. Information security is a very broad spectrum, but everything that related into protecting information, rather it's digital or not, would be included in information security. Then you can see that computer security or cybersecurity, which is the same thing, would be included into information security. The main difference between general information security or cybersecurity would be that aspect that cybersecurity indeed has protecting digital information and everything that related to computing network and computing devices. Then we will talk about system security. So the system security would be included in cybersecurity or as part of the components, electronic components security. And network security, basically all the network and anything that can be transmitted on the network, physical network, wireless network, and anything within. As you can see, web security, which is web application security, it's also part of the network security. Very new term in cybersecurity, IoT, or Internet of Things. Another term you often will hear such as connected things. Lately, everything being connected to the network. We're getting all the smart devices at home and everything is on the network, everything receives an IP address, and not is everything as secure. So I really like this meme that S in IoT stands for the security. However, right now manufacturers start realizing that devices that we connect to the network that are not very secure, providing an open door for intruders. If you have IoT devices in your household, I would recommend you to research best practices, how to keep them secure, how to secure your network. Maybe you will need to create a separate subnetwork that would include all your IoT devices and do not use IoT devices together with the rest of your computers at home. Information assurance. Information assurance is a science, a big block of information security. information assurance is a process that allows to implement different measures to protect information. So as you can see, it helps us to identify vulnerabilities and risks for the data, and also plan ahead how to implement security measures to prevent from losing the data. Let's talk about risk. What is the risk? Risk is a situation when your assets can be harmed, destroyed, damaged. Let's talk a little bit about assets. What would be our assets? If you look on the right, you have this Rubik's Cube that perfectly represents information assurance model. So we have our security goals, which is confidentiality, integrity, availability, and we will talk about them more specific in a moment. We also have information states, basically the states of your data. Your data can be in transmission, when you're transferring over the network, when you're sending your data. Your data can be in processing, when you're working with your data. And also your data can be in the storage, or another term for this, data at rest. That's when you saved your files, saved your information, and it's just resting there. And now let's look at the assets. So first and most valuable asset for any organization would be people, its employees. If during the exam you will see a question such as something dangerous happened in the organization, and what would we do, who we will save first, or what would be the most valuable asset that we need to save, it would be always people. Then it's going to be information, a data. After that, technologies and all other assets that can be replaced. Remember, we cannot replace people. That's why they are the most valuable asset. Risk management. Risk management is not just a process, but it is continuous it is continuous process, but you have to understand that risk management requires scientific approach to identifying risks and evaluating assets. Remember, I said people would be the most valuable. We don't put a price on our people. However, everything else has a price. And if it has a price, we have a loss in numbers, which means if we lose one computer that costs $1,000, that's the price for this computer. So we can calculate our loss expectancy based on the prices of our assets. And the only asset that we cannot put price on is the most important asset that we can protect at any cost. Key areas of information assurance. We have confidentiality, integrity, availability, authentication, and non-repudiation. You see this little triangle in the middle between authentication and non-repudiation. This triangle represents CompTIA triad, and we will talk about this triad just in a moment. But let's discuss what is confidentiality. When something is private or secret or confidential, it should stay confidential. Integrity. Nobody can change, alter any data. And availability. This data should be available to those who has a right to access this data. Authentication. When user can be validated and prove that he is who he is. Authentication does not provide access to the data, but authentication allows to identify the person or entity. Non-repudiation means that people cannot deny validity of something. And that means that if I send email, I cannot deny that I didn't and say that I did not send this email. So let's look at the next slide. Right now we see a CIA triad image where we see all these three terms that we just discussed, parts of our information security, such as confidentiality, integrity, and availability. If you get an exam question with CIA triad, you have to remember it's always C for confidentiality, I for integrity, and A for availability. It has nothing to do with CIA, our three-letter agency. Confidentiality, integrity, availability. Let's refresh. What is confidentiality? The secret data should stay secret. So encryption would provide some security to this data. Integrity. We know that data cannot be changed or altered. Hashing algorithm will provide us integrity. And availability means the people who have a right or permissions to access the data should be able to access the data. As it says on this slide, it is fundamental for the cybersecurity or information security in general. Please make sure you understand, memorize, and know what is CIA triad. Information security plan. As any plan, it's a set of procedures. Information security also requires to have a plan. And this plan should specifically tell us first of all, how to set up a secure network, secure systems to provide security for our people, to provide security for our data, for our organization assets. And second part of this plan, what to do in case of incident. What to do in case something bad already happened. How to mitigate. So we can see frameworks, and we will talk about frameworks in a moment. But again, you need to understand what are frameworks. Frameworks is documents and policies that tell you what to do and how to do and what would be best practices for that. It can be guidelines or it can be law. Secure configuration guides just provide you assistance. So difference with framework is a document that defines policies, but guides, it's more like a guideline. You can follow or you can have alternate options for that. And vendor specific guides, we're using technologies with different vendors. Some of the technologies have different guidelines than other vendors. Let's just say if you have Cisco devices on your network, most likely you will have different guidelines from Palo Alto devices. So you have to make sure that you're following vendor specific guides when you implementing this vendor technology on your network. Let's talk about frameworks. So what would be frameworks and what kind of frameworks are currently cybersecurity, information security professionals use? And let's break some aspects. So, frameworks is a security posture. So, what to do, how to do, strategy, right? Not just philosophy, even it says philosophy, but philosophy it's more when we just discussing things and uh, using our imagination. With frameworks, it's more specific. That tells you what would be your path or strategy. So there, you can see two types of frameworks on the slide: non-regulatory or industry standard. Non-regulatory, it means that is not a law or rule. You might follow, you might not. With industry standard, you have different industries where you can implement frameworks. But if you're in medical field, you will have one type of the framework that would work for the medical field. And if it's, let's just say, some business, corporate, it would be different. Maybe it's critical infrastructure, and then we will talk about completely different standards. Here I posted on the right image of some cybersecurity plan and framework and how it works all together. And you can browse this quickly and we will quickly discuss. So plan, we already start talking about this. When you plan and you plan ahead before anything happened. We will talk about AAA policies in a moment, authentication, authorization, accounting. We're not specifically stopping on each detail of this graphic right now, but you have to already prepare yourself of learning each step. So first in the plan, we're configuring, we implementing policies, and we monitoring to make sure that nothing bad happens. Constantly monitoring. If we're discovering some vulnerabilities, we make sure that we find countermeasures that will fix these vulnerabilities before something bad happened, such as patching, updating, upgrading. And we monitoring again. So we keep watching what's going on our system. We keep watching of, do we need any updates? Do we need any patches? Are there any new vulnerabilities had been discovered? We're protecting. We have to make sure we implement all security measures and installed all security devices on the network or on our web application or whatever is our asset, digital asset. And management is part of this process because it should never stop. We cannot just install everything and let it go. It constantly requires our attention. It constantly requires our configuration management. It constantly requires patch management or change management. And that's something we will discuss in the future of this class. But again, I want you like stop this video for a moment and try to browse this graphic. Try sort of visually memorize it. Payment card industry. One of the frameworks that you need to remember, if you will go for the job interview with one of the companies that using credit cards and they keep their customers' data of their financial transactions, they have to be compliant with PCI DSS. So we know it's non-regulatory framework, but when we say PCI DSS, we have to always remember it's credit card. Just look at this image, and it has to be completely linked with your memory. PCI, credit card. When we are talking about credit card, what data we're protecting? We're protecting information that related to the credit cards. And one more thing. When merchant stores the data by the PCI compliance, he can store your first and last name as written on the card, expiration date, credit card number, but merchant cannot store CVC number. That's why when you're shopping online, you always will be asked, even if you stored your credit card, to provide CVC number. Security goals. So on this slide in the table, you can see security goals linked to PCI DSS standards. I'm not going to read them all, but as you can see, all the goals in PCI standards, they are comply with each other and linked to each other. ISO standards. Again, you should know what ISO stands for, what is the organization name, International Organization for Standardizations. ISO is not always standardized cybersecurity or information security related aspects, but there are few ISO standards that you need to absolutely remember for this course, for Security Plus exam, and for your career in cybersecurity. So first of all, you should remember what is ISO 2700. It's a package of different standards that related to the IT and information technologies. So here are listed three of them: 2701, 2702, and 701. So first one focuses on information security management system. So how to manage risks, how to set up your assets evaluation, and so on. Second one defines establishment of continuing improvement. That means everything should be keep going in improvement and evaluation, improvement again. The 2700-701, it's related to your personal identified information. Another acronym that you absolutely must remember for this course, PII, personally identified information. In the future, I will not even say all the time personally identified information. I would just continuously say PII. And you should know what this PII stands for. So it's 270701 provides guides how to secure your PII. And the last one is not uh, part of the packet of ISO 2700, is ISO 3100. It contains standards and provide guidelines on risk management. We will learn about the risk management and risk assessment in the future. During the class discussions, sometimes I will often bring it back and will try to explain more and more about risk assessment and risk management. So by the end of the semester, you will be able not just tell me what is the risk, but help me to identify how to do risk management and how to calculate the risk and anything risk management related. CIS, Critical Security Controls. CIS stands for Center of Internet Security. You see the logo on the bottom, and it's non-profit organization. It maintains best practices that developed by all experts all over the world, not just United States. Originally, it had top 20 critical security controls. Recently, it had been changed to top 18. Here listed 6 of them, but if you will Google CIS top 18 critical security controls, you will find all 18 of them. SSAE SOC 2. That's another standard that you need to be familiar with and understand what this standard protects, what the certified by SOC 2 means, what certified by SOC 1 means, and what is type 1, what is type 2. So as you can see this seal on the top right corner, that's one of the seals from the internet I found that organizations would place on their maybe websites if they are certified by SOC. By SSAE. So SSAE states for Statement on Standards for Attestation Engagement. What they do, it's a standard that tells companies how to report on the compliance. Let's remember Service Organization Control, SOC. It has nothing to do with SOC security teams. We will talk about them in the future. Right now, SOC for you should stand for Service Organization Control. Now, type 1 focuses on outsourced services relevant to financial reporting. So, type 1 is always finances. Type 2 focuses on trust principles and required strict policies for customer security. That would specifies that organizations should report on anything related to the customer security. And type 3 would be the same as type 2, but doesn't have any private information in it. So most of the companies would be certified with type 2. Now, National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. This organization and the website, cybersecurity frameworks website of NIST, should be your cybersecurity table Bible. Please make sure you Google it. Make sure you know how to find specific documents, specific frameworks on their website. They provide a lot of trainings that absolutely free, online training, and you can actually complete them and keep a certificate of completion for your future reference. Let's talk a little bit about that image that you see on the left. That image is directly from the website. And as you can see, NIST cybersecurity framework designed to identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Let's talk about identify. What do we need to identify? Well, maybe first we need to identify our assets. We need to identify what type of business environment we have, what documents we need for this, do risk assessment since we know that some assets have value, and if we will lose them, we need to be able to tell what is our loss expectancy. And we have to have some type of strategy to provide mitigations for this risk. Again, we discussed the risk before, and we're going to discuss it again in the future. Protect. What measures need to be implemented to protect our assets? Access control, training for your employees, protecting data at rest and transition, information protection. What you can do to make sure that information doesn't leave your organization with your employees. What you can do to make sure you don't have bad employees who don't know the policies and unintentionally become insider threat. What processes and procedures you have in your organization, and what technologies you have that you need to protect. I mean, what technologies you use to protect, such as like firewalls, intrusion detection systems. Next, detect. So you must have, I just said, intrusion detection systems as a protection. But let's just say there are two types of IDS, IPS. So intrusion detection actually just detects, it doesn't protect. What I meant to say in the protect section was intrusion protection systems. The ones that not just identify intrusion but prevent it. Actually, intrusion prevention systems. So it says here, if you can read, anomalies and events. So you have to constantly monitor your network. You have to constantly monitor your employees. You have to implement all security measures to detect any threat to your organization. In case of the threat or incident happens, you need to be able and know how to respond properly. So you have to have response planning, response training. You have to have established communications in between first responders who are going to respond to this incident first. You have to be able to provide certain level of mitigations during the incident and post-incident. And then you have to learn from that incident and provide improvements. Recovery planning in a portion of recovery. So let's just say incident happened already. And if it didn't happen, the question is not if, it's when. And you have to provision how you will recover from the incident, how you will recover from data loss, maybe backups, right? And everything should be documented based on that. So let's talk a little bit more about NIST itself. NIST cybersecurity framework will tell organizations how to do all of these aspects of protecting organizations and protecting their assets correctly. So there is a framework core, which is set of cybersecurity activities. We just see this on this image. Framework implementation tiers. It's basically how to. And framework profiles, what would happen, what is outcomes after implementing a framework implementation. Security domains. So security domains is different parts of our network parts of our organization that needs to be protected. On this image, you can see we're starting with the security domains such as control, risk, and classification. So there are different classifications for security domains. There are different types of risk for all these different classifications. And of course, you will have different types of controls based on this types of risks and types of classifications for domains. So we have our data and information domain. We have system and applications domain and network infrastructure. So data is everything that is not really physical. It's our information. System and applications, that would be our physical devices, but also applications, so operating systems, maybe websites would be part of that. And network, your network infrastructure. And the facilities also including in infrastructure domain. So it's basically physical devices on a network or the building itself that contains this network inside. And business domain, it's would be, again, as you can see, they all link with each other. It's laws, policies, your projects, your business functions, and so on. So, one term that I like to us to pay attention to, attack surface. Attack surface can be anything on this security domain. Is not always attack through the network. Sometimes attack can happen without intrusion in the network. Attacks can happen in the physical world. Somebody who just walked into our organization, or maybe we already had insider, a person who already worked in our organization and exfiltrated data. So that stands for attack surface. It's all locations where attacker can enter and cause a security risk. Next image is quite famous in cybersecurity. And I like us to discuss each layer of this image. After we will talk a little bit what is defense in depth. Another word for defense in depth would be layered security. And again, you can see all these layers in the image. It means you have multiple redundant levels of protections. And it should protect one layer from if another fails for some reason. So we need to understand that we have different vendors and we use equipment from different vendors. We're using different technologies. In organization, it can be Windows computers, it can be Mac computers, and Linux computers, just as this basic analogy. And control diversity. Many organizations use different controls, different policies, different procedures. There are 3 types of control: administrative, procedural, technical. Again, that's something you need to memorize. Administrative, procedural, and technical. Now let's look at the image. So we're not looking right now to the left ray, and we're not looking to the right ray. We're looking specifically in the center bottom portion of this image, mission critical assets. Your mission can be anything, but whatever is critical for this mission, it would be most valuable asset that you need to protect. And then you cover this asset with data security preventative measures. It's maybe your it's stated here, data wiping, cleaning management, identity access management, who can access data, who cannot, data classification. So there is a classification of data that can be accessed by only classified employees and data that can be accessed by everyone. Integrity monitoring means that data should not be changed when it's not authorized change to that. Now, we're moving a little bit up. Application security. If we have an application, this application needs to be protected as well. So right in the middle, we see WAF, WAF. WAF stands for Web Application Firewall. And whatever strategies you use to protect this application layer is what is an application. Database need to be protected because it contains information that may be very related to our mission asset. And next, we're moving a little bit up in the layer. It's going to be endpoint security. What are our endpoints? Our computers, our printers. That's all endpoint devices. How we protect them? Installing firewalls on them, installing intrusion detection systems, installing intrusion prevention systems. That's why you will hear different terms, HIPs and HIDs, or NIPs and NEEDs. And when you see HID, it means host intrusion detection system or host intrusion prevention system. And host means your endpoint device. Network security. Network security devices protecting entire network, not just individual device. So anything that connected in this network should be protected by these devices. Web proxy, firewall. What else we need to protect? VoIP. Again, we will install IDS IPS. And last layer would be our perimeter security, or another term often used for this, physical security. It's need to be monitored physically with our cameras. Maybe we're preventing entering to the building of an unauthorized person by providing authorized people a security card that will open the door. Okay, so now I want us to look at the right and left rays. Let's start with the right, operations. Do you see these operations go from the very beginning, from the very asset itself, and all the way to outside layer? So operations need to go through all the layers. It's not even additional layer of protecting. It should be a part of every single layer. Like if we're going to security, it's going to be monitoring and response in the physical security. If we're going to the data security, we will use same. It's system that monitoring all the logs. We will discuss this in the future in a couple chapters from now. Policy management goes on the left, right. Again, it goes all through all layers. Policy management is not the layer itself. It should be covering every single layer of protection. And also should be policies that prevent use as a prevention mechanism that prevents from the intrusion. I included this slide. Even this slide was originally not in slides of that came with the book. Security onion and security artichoke models. So there are two different approaches to the security layering. So security is used to be addressed as a pie before, where you have all these layers of security one on top of another. But then security professionals redesigned that pie model into onion model. And as you can see, right in the middle it's going to be data security. Then next layer of onion from all the way around will protect its application security, host security, which is our end devices, internal network, perimeter security, and physical security. So if we will go back, we can see how similar onion to this little pie, except the difference that pie has always vulnerability because it doesn't protect all the way around, right? It's just visual representation, but it has its own meaning behind it. In onion, you have this layer all the way around. But there is another security model that is in use right now. It's artichoke. So as you can see, what is in artichoke leaves? Passwords, client-side attacks, databases, web applications, buffer overflow. You just take one leaf out, but you still have the other leaves. But if you will start peeling artichoke, slowly but surely you will compromise and will see the core, the data that you need to protect, which is core of the artichoke. User domain. User domain is about people. Everything that includes our employees, that's a user domain. Anything related to people who serving our organization as employees, vendors, anyone we hire, that would be in user domain. There are many policies that protecting user domain, but here's some basic ones, such as passwords or leaving information on open view, such as if you're working on a laptop and sometimes desktop. Sometimes employees would leave cubicle without logging out their computer and just leaving them on the screen as is. Passwords. We need to make sure we train our employees to make complex passwords, to use our actually password policy to change these passwords often. Maybe use some type of password saving mechanism. There are different password keepers. That's why I'm not mentioning any specific. And each organization will use different. Some organizations will use LastPass. Some organizations will use something else. I'm not specify anything, but maybe we will tell our employees and our organizations to use them, and we'll train them how to use them, so they will not have to memorize all the passwords. Workstation domain, our end devices, and this domain should specify when and how these devices can be accessed. LAN domain. LAN stands for local area network. So anything within our organization, within one single building, is our LAN, local area network. And we need to be able to identify any issues within LAN. And also we need to identify protective measures for this LAN. WAN stands for wide area network. On the image in the upper right corner, you can see how LANs connected with each other into MANs, which is metro area network, and then they connected to WAN, which is wide area network. And protecting wide area network mechanisms would differ from protecting LAN, because LAN is a small scale. WAN is a lot larger scale network. Remote access. Last year, we all went to work and study remotely, and that's when we realized how insecure many organizations are, how insecure many our home networks are. So remote access it doesn't mean your Wi-Fi access points only. It means that some of the organizations, when they allow their employees to work remotely, should have in place security that provides when employee need to connect organization network, organization servers remotely, such as VPN, virtual private network. System domain. System domain often relates to the servers. So servers, OS systems, that's why I put this image. It's kind of let you to memorize visually what is a system domain. It's more of the general terms. Regulatory compliance. So we talk about importance of compliance framework. And to comply with different standards, we have to follow their guides. So what would be regulatory compliance? And you can see this on the left image. It starts with the culture of the company. Different companies have different cultures. Then policies. Again, depending on the culture of your organization, you would implement different policies. Then you need to realize that there's going to be training involved of your employees based on the policies in your organizational culture. Compliance process, getting certified with compliance companies, compliance risk assessment. How you will get certified? You need to first do risk assessment. Would you have to evaluate your valuable assets? And compliance resources. What resources you can use to learn more about compliance and what needs to be done to comply with them. Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, CFAA. Important to remember. Stands for basically it defines and outlines unauthorized access to computers, and not just computers but any electronic computing devices, because now computers is not just traditional monitor, and now computers are portable, now computers in the cloud, and this Computer Fraud and Abuse Act would cover it all. As you can see, it's primarily protected in the US government systems of financial institutions, but US based, United States based. And if it says used to prosecute unauthorized computer access, and in any civil cases. So any unauthorized access to any computing device would be under this Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Electronic Communication Privacy Act, ECPA. That's another act that you need to be familiar with. And remember, I put this perfect image on the left that would help you to identify what this act is for. And yes, it says that authorities will not need warrant to obtain this data. I mean, they will need a warrant to obtain this data. So originally it was a 3 parts. Wiretap Act, when you in the past, before even computer networks, somebody could just wiretap your phone line and listen. So this Wiretap Act actually protects government agency from doing this without warrant. Stored Communication Act, again, anything in the storage device, your laptop, desktop, internal, external drive, would be protected under this. And Pen Register Act, it's means that court order must be issued or warrant to obtain this information. So you can see Pen Register is a device that captures outgoing phone numbers, emails, data, or internet addresses of communication between parties. So that's what it came originally as ECPA. Now let's look at the left. If we have like some of this data that cannot be obtained by the enforcement agencies, by law enforcement agencies without warrant, your emails, your texts from your mobile, your cloud storage devices or your physical storage devices, your private messages on the Facebook, on different platforms, your private images. So if anything you posted publicly, it's public. There is no need for warrant, but it specifically says private. Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. Just remember this name and what it stands for. This act is important, and most likely we will get a question on it during the Security Plus exam. Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act related to the businesses, to finances of businesses. So as you can see, by the safeguard rule, all businesses must develop, implement, and maintain comprehensive information security program. So it's a business responsibility to protect information related to the business. Administrative, technical, and physical safeguards appropriate to organization. So again, organization should comply and follow this act to protect their own information. And financial privacy rule. Disclosure or not disclosure of financial information. There are rules when you have to disclose your taxes, when there are rules when you should not disclose your taxes. So it's also under this financial privacy rule. Pretexting, that's a term that you need to memorize and is not just under GLBA. It will be used in the future when we will talk about ethical hacking, when we will talk about threat to organizations. So it's using lie or scam to obtain private information. Pretexting is the part of social engineering. Sarbanes-Oxley Act, SOX. In July 30th, 2002, Sarbanes-Oxley Act got in place. So it's actually Sarbanes-Oxley Act 2002. So it prevents companies' executives from hiding or destroying electronic records for minimum of 5 years. Again, that's important. Is not protects them CEOs and high executives from doing illegal things. It's protecting the organization and protecting its employees. If, for example, executives try to hide taxes, try to hide that they've been stealing money from the organization, stuff like this. So they should not destroy electronic records. They should keep all the electronic records in case somebody needs to take a look at them. And originally it was designed to crack down on computer fraud, obviously, because computers were used to compose documents, compose data, and some people simply thought by deleting this data they will restrict access to this data. Also, protect from whistleblowers, and whistleblowers are people who exfiltrate secret data, organization or government data, and requires executives to certify accuracy of financial information. Means if they keep financial information on file, it should be certified that it's accurate. They cannot fake their incomes. They cannot fake their spendings. HIPAA, one more very important act. Make sure you memorize the acronym. Make sure you memorize what this acronym stands for. Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Accountability. Anything related to patients' data, health information, should be protected. So, patients' health information or personal health information. But I remember this as patients because I know it's related to the health. So, any electronic medical records need to be protected by HIPAA. Privacy rule. So there should be standards in place. What is private, what is not. What can be provided and what needs to authorization to be provided to the patient or patient's relative, for example. Security rule establishes national set of national standards for protecting electronic health record. Basically, HIPAA regulates when and how personal health information can be shared and how it's supposed to be protected from unauthorized entities. And this one is European Union, EU, GDPR, General Data Protection Regulatory. So on the left side, we can go over some history. So we start with 1984, then Data Protection Act passed. Let's go back to the right side and see what it is. It provides regulations on data protection and privacy for all individuals in the European Union and European Economic Area. So, it's just for the Europe, but it's really important for us to know and be familiar with that. Then, outlines the technical and organizational safeguards, how to protect the data, when it's need to be protected, when it's private, when it's not. And I'd like us to go a little bit to the bottom and look at the last line. Fines for non-compliance. That was the most important. If you have an organization and you say, I don't care about security, I don't care about protecting data of my employees or protecting data of my customers, how you can make sure you will regulate this business and make this business to care of protecting? You will imply fines for them. If you're not doing this, you will be fined. If you will lose your customer data, you will get fines. If you and this fine should be big enough for organization to take security measures serious. So we're moving to 1995. Data Protection Directive passed. 2000. International Safe Harbor Privacy Principles established. So European Union includes many countries, and they also work with United States and other countries that not in the European Union. So that would be covered by International Safe Harbor. 1998, important date. Data Protection Act of 1998 passed. The 1984, but it's been 15 years since 1984. Technology is updated. We had actually a huge leap in this 15 years in technologies, and it would require additional protections for information based on the newer technologies and newer standards and newer expectations from the countries. In 2012, European Commission announces its plan to develop GDPR. So, Data Protection Act is evolved into GDPR. It started as basically protecting the data of private data of the people, organizations, but it wasn't GDPR as we know it today. And then we see again, similar to 2000, International Safe Harbor privacy principle overturned. So they were established, now they overturned 15 years later. Now, 2016, European Union and United States Privacy Shield replaces International Safe Harbor. So we had Safe Harbor, but it's overturned. And in place, we got this Privacy Shield between the United States and European Union. And 2016, as you can see, not so long from Privacy Shield between the United States and the European Union, Parliament of Europe actually approved GDPR. So 2018, it took 2 years after it's been approved to take effect in the real world. So now it's a law that we need to be familiar with and we need to follow if we have some, I mean organization working with the European Union. Thank you so much for watching. This was a chapter 1 of the book Security Essentials by Linda Lavender. If you have any questions, please contact me in person. You can use Canvas Messenger. You can contact me via email or hit me on the Discord.